We are talking about one Jack Schlossberg. Now, listen, again, we are not political here at The Nerve, but this is a Kennedy thing. This is a real Kennedy thing. And Ask Not was written to eradicate this monstrous family from our politics and our culture. And Jack is just the latest treatment-resistant organism. So we're going in, okay? Now, this isn't personal because I don't really care about Jack personally. Has he called me names? Yeah, but I can take it. Has he ripped me off with a segment called Ask Not on his loser whatever? I don't know what he's doing online. I don't know if it's a channel. For a while, we were rolling around New York City in our murder van. I don't know what's up with this kid, okay? But he ripped off Ask Not, you know? And again, if he had two brain cells to rub together, he would know that Ask Not is a searing critique of his family and the ways in which they have destroyed women. But I guess he thought it was catchy, and that's all that matters in the internet age, correct? This guy is 32 years old. He has never had a real job. He seems like he is mentally ill. His family, his extended family, has alluded to as much, okay? This media hit, which I caught on Sunday morning, and I texted Marlena immediately. I was like, we're moving. C block is this. It's it. It's it. The third block of the show. You know, they're alphabetized, A, B, and C. That's it. We're doing this. Now, he seemed heavily medicated. This is a local show in New York. It's called The Point, and it's hosted by this journalist named Marsha Kramer, who I used to read her like in the Daily News when I was a kid. I think she wrote for the news, and then she transitioned into local television news. Marsha, you know, her show is a little too cozy for me. It's a little too cozy. It's a Sunday morning news show, and all of them are useless, really. But aside from the lack of pointed questions, which, you know, if I were her producer, it would never fly. We would be going in. We would be making some headlines, and we would be getting some eyeballs and some ratings. You know, Barry Weiss, it's a steep hill over there, okay? Now, Marsha always sounds like she's a little drunk. She does. You'll see what I mean. Now, Jack toddled over to her studio for a one-on-one interview. This aired on local CBS News in New York on December 7th. And that's Sunday. And we're coming to you almost 48 hours later. And there are like 25 comments on the YouTube feed. 25. I think Ask Not is doing what it should be doing in the culture. Okay, we're going to listen to Jack talk. And by the way, I think Jack looks and sounds heavily medicated, like on prescription meds, potentially antipsychotics. And you'll see what I'm talking about as we go through this segment. Here's Jack. Jack is asked, why are you running? I would have prefaced this with like, you've never had a job. Here we
politics, go. I know this to be true, and I feel connected to our past. I feel generations that came before us, your ancestors and mine, built this country based on a belief that we could do big things and that the government was capable, confident, and cared about people. That when you called up your representative, you might actually talk to a human being and they would listen to your concerns. And our country turns 250 years old this year, and it's coming at an interesting moment in time. In the past, we believed in America.
Do not interrupt. He is a Kennedy. You do not interrupt Kennedys, no matter how nervous or ill-prepared, or he seems to be gulping on his own saliva and choking on his own well-rehearsed, one would think, words, okay? He's asked why he's running, and this is what he says. You know, I feel very connected to my past. That is a none too subtle code for, I am a Kennedy, give it to me. That's what it is. And then he's like, you know, my ancestors and like your ancestors, like, but your ancestors aren't Kennedys. Hey, did your ancestors lobotomize a woman or rape any number of women or leave them for dead or drive them to suicide or put them in loony bins? No, they don't talk to me. Let me finish my thought. Let me finish my vague, malformed thought as to why I am the person for this job. Now, is Marsha Kramer asking why our campaign manager quit after like 3 weeks on the job? No, we are not. We are not asking Jack that question. Ask not, right? Ask not. But we're going to take a look at this headline from the New York Post, this was published December 5th. Okay. So this should have been part of Marsha's interview. Annabelle Lasselet, if I'm saying her name right, hired to help launch the 32-year-old's Democratic primary campaign for New York City's 12th congressional district, has confirmed that she is now no longer working for Jack Schlossberg. But let's listen to Jack's. He is asked a specific question about his housing policy. Oh, and by the way, in that first answer, he did this thing that politicians do. They come up with a word in triplicate or a thought in triplicate, and it also has to be alliterative. So it sounds like we're very serious and we've got like real talking points that are like earworms. He says, capable, confident, and cared. First of all, I'd rather competent than confident, but this is all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Okay, so he's asked by Marcia a very specific question about his housing policy for New Yorkers, and here's his answer. And there's a huge preamble, and it is salient because he's trying to buy time so he can remember his rehearsed boilerplate answer. Here we go.
I know you have a new housing plan.
Yes.
So, I mean, is that where you're coming from?
Well, let me tell you what I see as a problem for our party. Democratic Party.
That's not the question,
we've got great
asshole.
Ideas, great policies. I'm a Democrat through and through. I believe in our history.
Who cares?
As a champion for minority communities. We have an amazing economic record to run on. The Democratic Party is
lost him to the GOP.
But we've been speaking in vague abstractions. And so my campaign
like now
is about releasing specific plans to address specific problems and actually make concrete steps toward fixing them.
Jack, why couldn't you have used all that time to just enumerate those? My favorite thing too is when politicians, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I hate politicians. When they're like, it's over on my website. I'm sorry, if you can't articulate it in 30 seconds or less, I'm not ambling over to your website. Why are you making me do your work? You're the one campaigning. You tell me. You tell me in a way that I can consume as I'm doing 1 or 2 or 3 jobs and, whatever. Now, Jack, who apparently lives in one of New York City's most fabled buildings. It is a place for wealthy people. And again, he's never had a job in the real world. Getting hired as Vogue's political correspondent for 9 months does not count. So he has lived in very rarefied worlds, and he has not had any reason to encounter people of lesser means, let alone poor people. And that's really who politicians should be serving, the poor. He has just learned. I'm not going to spoil it for you. Why would I spoil it for you? Let's learn about what Jack Schlossberg has just learned. Here we go.
Because I go and I talk to NYCHA residents, and they have a backlog of repairs that are not getting fixed. You know that it takes more than a year on average for a maintenance request to get filled?
So Jack, NYCHA is what is, it's the acronym for public housing in New York City, otherwise known as the projects. And Jack has just learned that poor people who have no recourses, who live in government-funded, shitty buildings, there's not a winter that goes by in New York where an entire complex doesn't lose heat. And people have no hot water, and they are really suffering. It happens every year, but Jack has just learned this. Does this guy even read a fucking newspaper or like watch the news in any capacity whatsoever? He just learned that it can take for up to a year, if they're lucky, for maintenance requests to get addressed. Marcia really should have slapped back, because that's what the consumer reporters at local news affiliates do. Every winter, they go into a project. They go into those houses, and houses, I mean, it's like so-and-so house. And they talk to residents who are suffering and are like endangering their lives and their children's lives by turning on the stove for heat, the oven for heat, because that's their last recourse. They're going to freeze to death. And, but apparently, we're just learning about this. So yeah, you should definitely represent the bulk of New York. Jack, you should represent your district. Absolutely, you should. Now, Jack has, much like Amy Schumer, and he's got another thing in common with Amy Schumer, and I'm just going to be a bitch about it because these people are so fucking entitled, and they have no business trying to get in office and have power. He only cares about power for power's sake. Trust me, this guy doesn't give a shit. Okay, my opinion. He's a former fat kid. And I think this goes to a lot of his issues. Now, if you look at his Instagram, he like Amy Schumer, has scrubbed posts that he now regrets. But Jack, the internet is forever. Again, another reason no one should ever vote for you. You're not very bright. Okay, here we go. This is one of Jack's one of Jack's comedic skits that we found over on TikTok, you idiot. Here we go.
Dear President Putin, every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart, whether born randomly into nation's rustic countryside or magnificent city center.
He is wearing a terrible blonde wig. It's a bobbed wig. Again, no matter your politics, whoever you voted for, the first lady is trying to rescue Ukrainian children who were kidnapped by the Russians. And she's been using soft diplomacy, backdoor diplomacy to do so. And she's been successful at it. And this asshole is over here making fun of her for doing that. And I can get it. You know why? Because cruelty is the most dominant gene in that family, the Kennedy family. There's, you know, I will get into it in a future episode. But aside from just that being ridiculous, he clearly hates women. And so if you're a woman and you're considering voting for this guy, think again. Really, he fucking hates women. Now, you want to know where he gets this from? You want to know where he gets this from? Mommy, who, when Hillary Clinton was vacating her Senate seat to run for the presidency, said to the governor of New York, give it to me. And the governor of New York said, fuck no, lady, go work for it. Get out there and tell people why you deserve to represent them. It's a job, not a throne. Here's Caroline Kennedy trying to make her case over at New York One.
You know, let me begin this way.
It was a few years ago, after, I felt, my job was to reach out to, everyday New Yorkers and really, I really ought to give it some thought. This is my life, as a
Working
mother.
in New York City.
While I was thinking about it, just sort of, in my own head.
Aside from, all the filler and, I had to talk to everyday New Yorkers, meaning people I never would have otherwise talked to because I go from my door to my chauffeured SUV to my door. She says, when I was thinking about it in my own head, as opposed to where, Caroline? Really, where? And Caroline Kennedy is responsible for this little monster running around, okay? So, keep going, Kennedys, keep going. It's amazing content. And I love an excuse to talk about Ask Not and all of the women that your family has destroyed. I want to tell you about a new documentary that I've recently watched. It's called Thank You, Dr. Fauci. And it is a deep dive into the origins of COVID-19, a potential bioarms race with China, and what could be the biggest public health deception in modern history. Award-winning filmmaker Jenner Furst pores over documents and grills scientists, intelligence experts, and whistleblowers. This is not a left-wing film or a right-wing film. It is a film about accountability. It is a compelling investigative work. It is urgent, unsettling, eye-opening, and it is now streaming on Angel Studios. It is a must-watch. If you have ever wondered what really happens behind closed doors, you will not want to miss this film. The biggest surprise for me was the courage it took to challenge the layers of institutional secrecy surrounding this story. Angel Studios is the only platform bold enough to release this, thanks to Guild members who vote on real stories. It is available on Angel, so be ready to watch, question, and share. If you are ready to demand transparency, join the Angel Guild at angel.com/nerve. Become a member, stream Thank You, Dr. Fauci, and be part of the conversation demanding truth and accountability.